Wolfen woke up to a typical morning, reaching for his phone to check the time. But as he turned it on, he was greeted with a blank screen. No signal, no internet. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes, thinking it was just a minor glitch. He tossed the phone aside and reached for his laptop, but Firewolf, his trusty search browser, was down too. A growing sense of unease crept over him as he checked his computer, only to find it was also offline. Panic began to set in. He threw off the covers and rushed to his mother's room, hoping she might know something. "Mom, did you pay the bill this month?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. But as he entered her room, he was met with a sight that made his blood run cold. His mother, usually busy with her gardening or cooking, was standing in the middle of the room, her eyes vacant and lifeless. She was moving her hands aimlessly, as if trying to grasp something. Wolfen's heart sank as he realized she was different. She jerked around, her movements stiff and unnatural. Wolfen's instinct screamed at him to get away, but his legs felt rooted to the spot. His mother's eyes locked onto him, and she began to move towards him. The sound of gunfire and screams echoed from outside. Wolfen's neighbors, infected and shambling, were pouring into the street. A soldier yelled, "Get down!" as the military opened fire on the horde. Wolfen's instincts kicked in, and he turned to run. But as he looked down at himself, he saw the blood splatters on his clothes. The soldiers thought he was infected. They raised their rifles, and Wolfen knew he had to get out of there fast. He sprinted away from the chaos, his heart pounding in his chest. Where could he go? Who could he trust? The only place that came to mind was the school, where his friends might be gathering. As he ran, he spotted the school building in the distance. Smoke billowed from the cafeteria, and he could see his friends, Sophia and James, trying to barricade themselves inside. Wolfen's heart skipped a beat as he saw them struggling to get in. He picked up speed, determined to reach them before it was too late. Wolfen's eyes snapped open as the first zombie lunged at him. He gripped the metal signpost tightly, feeling its weight and balance. With a swift motion, he swung it in a wide arc, striking the zombie with a loud clang. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through his arms, but he held firm. More zombies closed in, their moans and snarls filling the air. Wolfen's training kicked in, and he began to dance between the undead, striking with precision and deadliness. The metal signpost sliced through the air, biting deep into the zombie's flesh.
Sophia and James watched in awe as Wolfen fought for his life. They had never seen him like this before, focused, deadly, and utterly determined to survive. As the zombies continued to pour in, Wolfen's movements became more fluid, more calculated. He was a force to be reckoned with, taking down the undead with ease. But despite his skill, the sheer number of zombies began to overwhelm him. Just when it seemed like the tide was turning against him, Wolfen spotted an opening. With a fierce cry, he pushed through the zombies, using his signpost to clear a path. The school doors swung open, and he sprinted towards them, the zombies hot on his heels. The barricade creaked and groaned as the zombies slammed into it, but it held firm. Wolfen collapsed against the door, gasping for breath as Sophia and James slammed the barricade shut behind him. For a moment, the three friends stood there, panting, their eyes locked on each other. Then, without a word, Wolfen handed Sophia the metal signpost, his chest heaving with exertion. "You're going to need this," he said, his voice low and even. "We don't know what other dangers are lurking out there." Sophia took the signpost, her eyes flashing with determination. Together, the three friends looked around the school, trying to get their bearings. But as they turned to face the interior of the building, they were met with an unsettling sight. The gym teacher's eyes locked onto the three friends, and Wolfen's instinct screamed at him to get away. The teacher's gaze was cold, calculating, and utterly devoid of humanity. Wolfen's fur stood on end, and he felt his blood run cold as he realized they were staring into the face of a formidable foe. Sophia didn't hesitate. She sprinted towards the gym teacher, tackling him to the ground with a fierce determination. The teacher's zombie body crashed to the floor, and Sophia quickly scrambled to her feet. She grabbed the metal signpost sword and threw it to Wolfen, who caught it with a swift motion. With a deep breath, Wolfen charged at the gym teacher, swinging the sword in a precise arc. The blade bit deep into the teacher's skull, but instead of crumpling to the ground, the zombie merely stumbled. Its eyes flashed with fury, and it began to rise to its feet, its gaze fixed on Wolfen with an unholy hunger. The three friends exchanged shocked glances. They had never seen a zombie like this before. The gym teacher's zombie body seemed almost enhanced. Its strength, speed, and resilience were unlike anything they had encountered before. "What do we do?" Sophia whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Wolfen's eyes locked onto the gym teacher, his grip on the sword tightening. "We need to take him down, and fast," he growled, his voice low and deadly. But as they prepared to face the zombie gym teacher, they heard a strange noise coming from the depths of the school.
The quiet kid, known for sitting in the corner of math class, emerged from the shadows, a gun clutched in his hand. His eyes scanned the hallway, and with calculated precision, he took out the zombies one by one, including the gym teacher. Wolfen, James, and Sophia watched in stunned silence as the kid moved with a deadly efficiency, his expression unreadable. As the last zombie fell, the kid turned to face them, his gaze cold and detached. For a moment, they locked eyes, and Wolfen felt a shiver run down his spine. The kid's demeanor was even more intimidating than they had imagined, and they couldn't help but wonder what had driven him to become so ruthless. Without a word, the kid turned and walked away, disappearing into the depths of the school. Wolfen, James, and Sophia exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of what to make of the sudden appearance of this quiet, deadly stranger. "Who is that?" Sophia whispered, her voice barely audible. Wolfen shook his head. "I don't know, but I think we're about to find out." As they watched the kid disappear into the darkness, they couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to become a lot more complicated. The rooftop offered a bleak view of the desolate landscape. Wolfen, Sophia, and James sat in silence, reflecting on the events that had led them to this point. The next morning, James got down to scavenge for food, but his luck ran out. A zombie emerged from the shadows, and despite Wolfen and Sophia's efforts to save him, James succumbed to his wounds. The loss was devastating. Wolfen and Sophia fled, desperate to escape the zombies that had taken their friend. In their desperation, they stumbled upon a strip club, where they found temporary refuge. To their surprise, they encountered Tommy and Jessica, other friends who had managed to survive. As they shared the news of James' demise, the room fell silent. The once vibrant space now felt cold and empty, a stark contrast to its former purpose. The group sat in somber reflection, mourning the loss of their friend. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the sound of distant groaning and the occasional crash. Wolfen's eyes met Sophia's, and he knew they would have to keep moving soon. But for now, they sat in silence, paying their respects to James. The joke fell flat, and the silence that followed was oppressive. Wolfen's attempt to lighten the mood only seemed to make things worse. The weight of James' death hung heavy in the air, and the group's memories of their friend flashed before their eyes. Wolfen's gaze drifted to the old radio on the shelf, and he decided to tinker with it. After a few minutes of fiddling, he managed to get a signal. A government broadcast crackled to life, and the voice on the other end spoke in a serious tone.
"This is not a test. This is not a drill. A virus has rocked the city, and we have reason to believe it's a strain of the flu known as the T virus. Symptoms to watch out for include foaming at the mouth, fatigue, increased aggression, and an uncontrollable appetite. If you encounter an infected individual, it's recommended to subdue them with a headshot." The voice continued, "God bless Azoria, a strong and reliable nation. We'll get through these tough times together." The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving the group in stunned silence. The cold, uneasy feeling in the air was palpable. Wolfen, Sophia, Tommy, and Jessica exchanged worried glances, their minds racing with the implications of what they had just heard. The T virus. It sounded like a nightmare come to life, and the fact that the government was only now acknowledging it. The group's unease grew, and they knew their situation was far more dire than they had initially thought. The joke fell flat, and the silence that followed was oppressive. Wolfen's attempt to lighten the mood only seemed to make things worse. The weight of James' death hung heavy in the air, and the group's memories of their friend flashed before their eyes. Wolfen's gaze drifted to the old radio on the shelf, and he decided to tinker with it. After a few minutes of fiddling, he managed to get a signal. A government broadcast crackled to life, and the voice on the other end spoke in a serious tone. "This is not a test. This is not a drill. A virus has rocked the city, and we have reason to believe it's a strain of the flu known as the T virus. Symptoms to watch out for include foaming at the mouth, fatigue, increased aggression, and an uncontrollable appetite. If you encounter an infected individual, it's recommended to subdue them with a headshot." The voice continued, "God bless Azoria, a strong and reliable nation. We'll get through these tough times together." The broadcast ended abruptly, leaving the group in stunned silence. The cold, uneasy feeling in the air was palpable. Wolfen, Sophia, Tommy, and Jessica exchanged worried glances, their minds racing with the implications of what they had just heard. The T-virus. It sounded like a nightmare come to life, and the fact that the government was only now acknowledging it. The group's unease grew, and they knew their situation was far more dire than they had initially thought. Sophia looked at him surprised. She thought it was kind of hot, but because she is a responsible teenager like the rest of us, she decided to keep it family-friendly and keep her inappropriate desires. In comments to herself, Sophia's eyes sparkled with amusement as she watched Wolfen take down zombies with ease. She couldn't help but notice how his focus and skill made him look even more impressive, but she kept her thoughts to herself, not wanting to distract him from their survival mission.
Tommy and Jessica, on the other hand, couldn't resist snickering at the situation. They knew Wolfen was clueless about Sophia's admiration, and his innocence about social cues was almost comical. As they joined the fight, they exchanged knowing glances, amused by Wolfen's obliviousness. After securing the camp, Wolfen and Tommy set out to investigate the radio tower. Sophia and Jessica stayed behind, safe within the camp's fences. As they walked, Tommy playfully teased Wolfen about being blind to something, but Wolfen's confusion only led to more teasing. Their destination turned out to be a 5-tower, but they still managed to scavenge some useful supplies, including canned goods from an abandoned truck. Wolfen's military knowledge proved invaluable as they navigated the area, but his social awareness remained limited. Sophia looked at him surprised. She thought it was kind of hot, but because she is a responsible teenager like the rest of us, she decided to keep it family-friendly and keep her inappropriate desires. And comments to herself, Sophia's eyes sparkled with amusement as she watched Wolfen take down zombies with ease. She couldn't help but notice how his focus and skill made him look even more impressive, but she kept her thoughts to herself, not wanting to distract him from their survival mission. Tommy and Jessica, on the other hand, couldn't resist snickering at the situation. They knew Wolfen was clueless about Sophia's admiration, and his innocence about social cues was almost comical. As they joined the fight, they exchanged knowing glances, amused by Wolfen's obliviousness. After securing the camp, Wolfen and Tommy set out to investigate the radio tower. Sophia and Jessica stayed behind, safe within the camp's fences. As they walked, Tommy playfully teased Wolfen about being blind to something, but Wolfen's confusion only led to more teasing. Their destination turned out to be a 5-tower, but they still managed to scavenge some useful supplies, including canned goods from an abandoned truck. Wolfen's military knowledge proved invaluable as they navigated the area, but his social awareness remained limited. As they headed back to camp, Sophia and Jessica asked Wolfen to teach them how to use a gun, trying to gauge his reaction. Wolfen, oblivious to their intentions, proudly declared, "You guys shouldn't have to use guns. Let me handle things." He effortlessly took down zombies at night, his skills only making Sophia more amused by his innocence.
After rations got low, they left the camp on ATVs and stumbled upon a race car in an open garage. The car was left in gear, and they investigated, finding it full of gas. The teens couldn't resist the temptation to take it for a spin, driving fast and enjoying the freedom. As night fell, they parked the car in a serene spot, surrounded by water and under the stars. Wolfen sat on the hood, Sophia on a nearby rock, Tommy stood on the car's roof, and Jessica skipped rocks into the water. For a moment, they forgot about the zombie apocalypse and enjoyed the peace. The next day, they decided to raid a shopping mall, despite their reservations. As expected, it was overrun with zombies. They fought their way out, expending a lot of ammo. Wolfen's skills proved invaluable, but the group's bravery came at a cost. The group's dramatic outburst of self-hatred and whining was a mix of frustration and relief. Wolfen's suggestion to head to Japan, however, took everyone by surprise. His reason, Japanese girls, left them stunned, and Sophia couldn't help but burst into laughter. Tommy smirked, amused by Wolfen's priorities, while Jessica looked on, shaking her head in disgust. As they traveled, they stumbled upon a semi-truck filled with Twinkies. Wolfen's eyes lit up, and he charged towards the truck without hesitation. The group watched in awe as he dove into the cargo hold, emerging with a mouthful of unwrapped Twinkies and a grin that could light up a room. His happiness was palpable, and despite his questionable priorities, the group couldn't help but be amused by his antics. The group's dynamic was always entertaining, with Wolfen's single-minded focus on his interests often leading to humorous interactions. Sophia's attempt to flirt with him was met with his characteristic dismissiveness, leaving her speechless and the others in stitches. As they navigated the city, they encountered increasingly intense zombie hordes. Despite their skills, they got overwhelmed and had to retreat. The hot spring they stumbled upon offered a much-needed break, but the unexpected twist of only the men's section having hot water led to an awkward moment. Sophia's bold move into the men's hot spring, accompanied by her impromptu lecture on Chinese culture, left everyone stunned. Tommy and Wolfen's reactions were priceless, with their jaws dropped and noses bleeding figuratively from the shock. Jessica's disgust was palpable as she walked away, while Sophia seemed unfazed by the commotion she caused. The group eventually moved on, seeking a secluded spot to regroup. Instead, they found a small settlement of survivors, who welcomed them warmly. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful, as everyone was just trying to survive in this new world.
The group's discovery that they were all heading to the same destination, Heaven's Gate, seemed like a fortunate coincidence. However, unbeknownst to them, this place was a sinister trap. As they journeyed together, the dynamic between the adults and teenagers was tense, but they managed to work together to survive. Their discovery of the horrific truth behind Heaven's Gate was a nightmare. The survivors were being used as armor to blend in with the zombies, and the group was captured and chained up. Wolfen's quick thinking and resourcefulness proved to be their salvation, as he used a bobby pin to unlock his restraints and free the others. As they fought back against their captors and took down the perpetrators, they were met with the devastating aftermath of the twisted ideology that had driven these people to such atrocities. The unholy stench of the armor farm was overwhelming, and the group's disgust was palpable. With a newfound sense of regret and anger, they decided to leave Heaven's Gate behind and set their sights on a new destination, Hawaii. The group's experiences had taught them to be cautious, but they were determined to find a safer haven. The group's luck seemed to be running out as they encountered more and more twisted individuals. The cannibalistic group they met at the hospital was a new low, and losing one of their own to these monsters was a harsh reminder of the dangers they faced. Wolfen's reaction was primal and fierce, driven by a deep-seated disgust and anger towards the cannibals. He took it upon himself to take down the entire camp, refusing to let his friends suffer the same fate. Despite being injured, he emerged victorious, but the toll on his body was evident. As they tended to his wounds and mourned the loss of another member, they knew they had to keep moving forward. The harsh reality of their world was that the old and weak were often the first to fall, and they couldn't afford to dwell on their losses. Finally, after all their trials and tribulations, they found a glimmer of hope in the form of a secluded island in Hawaii. They decided to settle there and build a new life, free from the horrors they had faced. The island offered a chance for them to start anew, and they were determined to make the most of it.
The passage of time had brought prosperity to the island settlement, now known as the WolfClaw Empire. Wolfen, once a young and resourceful survivor, had grown into a strong and capable leader. The empire thrived, with stone buildings and a growing population. Military helicopters and armor patrolled the skies and protected the community from the occasional zombie threat. A plaque commemorated the fallen members of the original group, including James, Tommy, and the adults who had lost their lives along the way. Sophia, now a peaceful gardener, tended to the empire's gardens and livestock, living a simpler life amidst the chaos. Wolfen, still driven by his military instincts, coordinated attacks and maintained order, ensuring the empire's continued survival and growth. The contrast between Sophia's serene life and Wolfen's intense dedication to the empire's security was a testament to the diverse paths they had taken. Yet, both were essential to the empire's success, and their bond remained strong despite the years and their differing roles. The WolfClaw Empire stood as a beacon of hope in a world ravaged by the zombie apocalypse, and its people looked to Wolfen and Sophia as symbols of resilience and determination. The night descended upon the island, bringing with it an unprecedented threat. The zombie hordes, the largest the survivors had ever seen, were closing in. Wolfen's voice crackled over the radio, barking orders to mobilize the defense. Send half our troops to militarized mobile defense and the others to civil unrest. Arm everyone, just in case. We need to restore order no matter what. The military sprang into action, with Black Hawks swarming the skies and ground vehicles pouring out of the base. Wolfen took to the front lines, his rifle at the ready. When he spotted Sophia in trouble, he swiftly took out the zombie threatening her, impressing the soldiers nearby. He dragged her away from the crops which were being destroyed in the chaos. The battle was intense, with both sides suffering heavy losses. But the Empire's military might ultimately prove too much for the zombies. After the attack, the island lay in ruins, but the survivors began the long process of rebuilding. As the months passed, the Empire slowly rose from the ashes. New survivors arrived, drawn by the promise of safety and stability. The Empire's growth accelerated, and soon they began to look beyond the island's boundaries, seeking to expand and reclaim more territory. The future looked uncertain, but one thing was clear: the WolfCraftian Empire would endure. Wolfen's illness was a wake-up call, but Sophia's care and nursing helped him recover. As he returned to his duties, he was surprised to find that the Empire had continued to thrive in his absence. The experience brought them closer together, and they started dating. Their relationship blossomed as they worked together to keep the Empire running.
Flashbacks to their past, both before and after the apocalypse, only strengthened their bond. They reminisced about carefree days playing tag and hopscotch and their mischievous antics in school. As a couple, they proved to be an unstoppable force, making the Empire stronger and more resilient. As the Empire expanded, Wolfen and Sophia's relationship continued to grow. They started to regain control of the mainland, and survivors began to flock to their community. The Empire flourished, and eventually, Wolfen and Sophia decided to step down from their leadership roles, content with a quieter life. Their marriage celebration coincided with the Empire's major achievement of bringing back the internet. The combined festivities sent the entire Empire into a state of jubilation, with fireworks lighting up the sky and the stars shining brightly above. The party lasted for days, marking not only the union of Wolfen and Sophia, but also the Empire's significant milestone in rebuilding society. As the zombies dwindled in numbers, the future looked brighter, and the Empire's prospects seemed limitless. The party was a spectacle like no other, with festivities that catered to both adults and teenagers. The spread of food was fit for royalty, with an array of delicacies that were once considered ordinary, but were now a rare treat. The gunfire range was a unique festival activity, reflecting the new world's reality where guns were a necessary tool for survival. The tournaments in gun shooting, archery, and sword fighting brought out the competitive spirit in both kids and adults. The playful fights, with rules that prohibited headshots and vital targets, showcased the community's toughness and resilience. Despite the dangers of their world, the atmosphere was carefree and joyful, with everyone living in the moment and savoring the beauty of the present. The celebration was a testament to the human spirit's ability to find happiness and community even in the darkest of times. Wolfen's journey took a dramatic turn when he contracted an illness on a mission, which turned him half undead. However, unlike others, he retained his humanity and was immune to the full effects of the virus. Quarantined for a year, he was eventually released when no threat was found. Wolfen and Sophia built a life together, having children who grew up to be strong soldiers. But fate had other plans, and Sophia passed away. Wolfen, now immortal, was left to witness the cycle of life and death, watching his children grow old and have kids of their own. For 670 years, he endured this lonely existence, until finally he found peace and passed away in his sleep.